I bought back my parents' foreclosed house to help them. Then my sister moved in with her boyfriend and acted like they owned it. I tried to keep it cool until they insulted my son and I snapped. I'm a 34-year-old single parent to my amazing kid, Ethan. A 10-year-old boy who's literally the only person in this world I truly care about. I work as a project manager in Austin. I make good money now, about $280,000 a year. But the road to get here was absolute hell. So I guess I should start from the beginning. My family has always been completely messed up, to put it mildly. My parents always had a favorite child, and it sure as heck wasn't me. My younger sister Amber could do no wrong in their eyes. She was the gifted one, the special one, the one who deserved everything while I got nothing. I still remember that day so clearly. I was 19, had just gotten my acceptance letter to UC Berkeley. I was so freaking excited, the first person in our family going to a prestigious school. I ran into the living room waving that letter around, and my parents called me to sit down with these weird, serious expressions. "Megan, we need to talk about college," my dad said, not even looking me in the eye. I sat there still excited, thinking maybe they were going to surprise me with something for graduation or whatever. "Yeah, I was that naive. We've used your college fund for Amber," my mom said, like she was telling me we were having pizza for dinner. "She's been accepted into this exclusive arts program in New York. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." I just sat there completely stunned. "You what?" "My entire college fund. All of it." They nodded, like this was the most reasonable thing in the world. "You can take out student loans," my dad said, "but this opportunity for Amber won't come around again." I was done with their favoritism and the way they were using me to achieve Amber's dreams. I figured I'd do better alone. So that night, I packed everything I owned into my crappy Honda Civic and left. Nobody even came out to say goodbye. I drove straight to Austin, sleeping in my car the first few nights until I found a tiny apartment and the first of many crappy jobs. For years, all I heard from my parents were updates about Amber. Amber's artwork was featured in a student showcase. Amber met this famous artist. Amber, Amber, Amber. Never once did they ask how I was doing or if I was even alive. I worked 3 jobs while taking classes at community college. Mornings at a coffee shop. Afternoons doing data entry, evenings waiting tables. Some nights I slept in the break room at work because I couldn't afford bus fare. I ate leftover food from customers' plates when nobody was looking. Yeah, not proud of that, but try going hungry for 3 days straight and see what you do. When I finally finished my degree, I got an entry-level job at a tech startup and worked my way up. I met Ethan's dad there. Jason seemed like a good guy at first. Smart, funny, actually paid attention to me. We got married after dating for a year, and Ethan came along a year after that. Then I found the texts between Jason and his 22-year-old intern. Yeah, that old story. I didn't even bother with the screaming and crying part, just packed his crap in garbage bags, set them by the front door, and told him he could leave on his own or I'd throw everything off our balcony. His choice. To his credit, he's never missed a child support payment. Shows up for Ethan's birthday and Christmas, and that's about all I need from him, honestly. So for the last 8 years, it's been just me and Ethan against the world. My kid is seriously amazing, smart, funny kind. He's in the gifted program at school, plays soccer, and is obsessed with building these crazy detailed Lego structures. Every night I read to him before bed, even though he can read perfectly fine on his own now. It's our special thing. I worked my butt off, got promotion after promotion, and finally bought a nice 4-bedroom house in a good school district last year. Life was actually pretty good. I didn't need my family. I'd built my own life on my own terms. Then last month, the phone call came that changed everything. It was just a regular Tuesday. I was finishing up a Zoom call with clients when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. "Hello, Megan. It's your mother." My stomach dropped. 15 years. It had been 15 freaking years since I'd heard her voice. Not since that day I drove away from home with nothing but a suitcase and whatever cash I had saved. "Mom," I said, not even trying to sound happy about it, just acknowledging the fact. "You need to come home. Your father's in the hospital." Her voice was shaking. "The family is in serious trouble." For a second, I almost laughed. Family? What family? The one that stole my college fund to pay for my sister's pipe dreams. That family? What happened? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral even though my heart was racing. "Your father had a heart attack. He's stable now." But she paused. "There's more. We're about to lose the house. The bank is foreclosing in 2 weeks." And there it was. The real reason for the call after 15 years of silence: they needed money. Of course they did. Why else would they ever contact me? "I'm sorry to hear about Dad," I said. And weirdly, I actually meant it. But I don't see what this has to do with me. Please, Megan, just come home. We need to talk in person. I should have said no. I should have hung up. But something in her voice, real fear, maybe actual desperation, got to me. Plus, there was this tiny part of me that wanted to see them squirm to show up successful as heck after they threw me away. I'll think about it, I said, and ended the call. That night, after putting Ethan to bed, I sat on my back porch staring at the stars. Should I go? Should I ignore them? I texted my best friend Tara, asking what she thought. They only called because they want something. She texted back immediately. You don't owe them anything. She was right. But I kept thinking, what if my dad died? Would I regret not seeing him one last time? And more importantly, could I pass up the chance to show them exactly what they lost when they chose Amber over me? The next morning, I made arrangements to work remotely for a few days, told Ethan we were taking a short trip and packed our bags. I wasn't going back for them. I was going back for me. The drive to San Antonio took about an hour and a half. Every mile closer made my stomach twist into tighter knots. Ethan was quiet beside me, playing some game on his tablet. Mom, where are we going exactly? He finally asked. We're going to meet your grandparents, I said. The words felt strange in my mouth. I have grandparents. His eyes went wide. You never talked about them before. That's when it really hit me. My parents didn't even know Ethan existed. They had a grandson for 10 years and never once asked about him. What kind of people do that? When we pulled up to the house, I sat in the car for a solid minute, just staring. It looked smaller than I remembered, run down. The paint was peeling, the lawn was overgrown, and one of the shutters was hanging crooked, a far cry from the nice home it was when I left. My mother opened the door before we even reached it. She looked so much older, gray hair, deep wrinkles around her eyes. For a moment, I felt a tiny bit sorry for her. Then her gaze shifted to Ethan, and her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, she whispered. My father appeared behind her, leaning heavily on a cane. He looked frail, his once broad shoulders now hunched, his eyes too fixed on Ethan. This is my son Ethan, I said, putting a protective hand on his shoulder. Ethan, these are your grandparents. And just like that, they transformed. Suddenly, they were all smiles and sweet talk. My goodness, you've grown so big. Do you like baseball I used to coach? You look just like your mother when she was your age. It was like watching actors step into roles. The doing grandparents, who had never sent so much as a birthday card or even asked if I had kids. I cut through the act pretty quick. Can we skip this and talk about why I'm here? My mother's fake smile disappeared. She ushered us inside, and that's when I got the full story. Amber took out a large loan to start her design studio. My father explained, his voice weak. The business failed. We mortgaged the house to help her, and now the bank is taking it. They needed $200,000 to save the house. My father looked me straight in the eye and said, That's not much for you now, is it, Megan? The audacity, like I owed them anything, like I hadn't struggled for years because of their choices. Before I could respond, the front door swung open, and there she was, Amber, looking like she just walked off a fashion magazine cover. Designer clothes, perfect hair, immaculate makeup, but her eyes were cold when they landed on me. Well, look who decided to show up, she sneered. Come to play savior. I felt my blood pressure rising but kept my voice steady. I'm just here to understand the situation. The situation, Amber mocked, is that Mom and Dad are losing everything because the bank is run by heartless jerks, and you're our last hope, Miss Big Shot Tech Executive. The way she said it made it clear she thought I didn't deserve my success, like I'd just gotten lucky instead of working my butt off for years. I took a deep breath, looked around at all three of them, and said evenly, I'll need time to think about this. I'll let you know my decision in 3 days. I got us a hotel room downtown. No way was I staying in that house with them. That night, I called my friend Jessica, who's a real estate attorney, and she gave me an idea that would change everything. So let me get this straight, she said after I explained everything. They stole your college fund, ignored you for 15 years, and now they want you to bail them out. Pretty much, I said. And you're actually considering it. The disbelief in her voice was clear. I sighed. Not for them, but if I don't help and they end up homeless, will I regret it later? Plus, Dad did just have a heart attack. Jessica was quiet for a moment. I have an idea. Why not buy the house outright and put it in your name? Let them live there, but only if they agree to pay back the full amount in 5 years. If they don't, the house remains yours. It was perfect. They'd have a place to live, but on my terms, and Amber wouldn't get another chance to drain them dry. Draw up the papers, I told her. I'll be back in 3 days with my answer. Those 3 days were weird. I took Ethan to the Riverwalk, showed him the Alamo, did all the tourist stuff, but my mind was constantly racing thinking about the situation. Part of me wanted to just walk away. Another part wanted to help, but only on my terms. And a small petty part of me that I'm not particularly proud of wanted to see the look on their faces when I laid out my conditions. 3 days later, Jessica and I walked into my parents' house with a contract. My parents were sitting in the living room looking nervous. Amber was there too, scrolling through her phone like nothing important was happening. "I've made my decision," I said, sitting down across from them. Jessica placed the contract on the coffee table. "I'll pay off the $200,000 loan. The house will be in my name. You can continue living here, but only as tenants. To regain ownership, you must pay back the full amount within 5 years. If not, the house stays mine." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's face crumpled and she started crying. My father looked like he'd aged another 10 years in those few seconds. "But Amber," she exploded. "Are you kidding me?" she shrieked, jumping to her feet. "You're making Mom and Dad pay to live in their own home. What kind of heartless person does that?" I stood up calmly, gathering the contract. "Forget it then. Good luck with the bank. Wait," my father said quickly, reaching out a shaky hand. "We accept your terms." Amber stared at him in disbelief. "Dad, you can't be serious. We don't have a choice, Amber," he said quietly. "The bank takes the house in 2 weeks otherwise." And that was that. Jessica handled all the paperwork, and 2 weeks later the house was legally mine. My parents seemed resigned to the new arrangement. I actually felt a little bad for them. But then I remembered how they'd shipped me off without a second thought so Amber could chase her dreams. I went back to Austin, figuring things would settle down. Boy, was I wrong. About a month later, I decided to do a surprise visit to check on the house. My house now. When I pulled up, there was a beat-up motorcycle in the driveway that I didn't recognize. Weird. I knocked, then used my key when nobody answered right away. The moment I stepped inside, I smelled weed. Strong weed. And then I heard laughing from the kitchen. I found my mother cooking, my father at the table, and Amber lounging by the counter. But there was someone new. A guy covered in tattoos with a man bun and a vape pen sitting at my parents' table like he owned the place. "Megan?" My mother looked startled. "We weren't expecting you." "Clearly," I said, eyeing the guy. "Who's this?" Amber draped herself over the guy. "This is Ryan, my boyfriend! Ryan, this is my sister I told you about." Ryan looked me up and down in a way that made my skin crawl. "So, you're the corporate sellout, huh? Nice to finally meet you." I ignored him, turning to my mother. "I didn't agree to let Amber and her boyfriend live here. It's just temporary," my mother pleaded. "Until they get back on their feet. Ryan's between jobs right now, and they couldn't afford their apartment. Of course, Amber loses her business, and instead of getting a real job like everyone else, she moves back in with Mom and Dad and brings her loser boyfriend along for the ride." "Not my problem," I said flatly. "They have 2 weeks to find somewhere else." Ryan laughed. "You can't kick us out. This is your parents' house. Actually, it's my house now," I corrected him. "And yes, I can." That night, after I'd gone upstairs to the guest room to do some work, Ryan cornered me in the hallway on my way to the bathroom. He reeked of weed and body odor. "You think you're so much better than everyone, don't you?" he slurred. "Single mom who got lucky with a cushy job. Bet you slept your way to the top." I tried to step around him, but he blocked my path. "Get out of my way, dude." "Or what?" He leaned in closer. "You'll call Daddy." "Oh wait, you can't, because Daddy's downstairs worried about being homeless because of his daughter." I stood my ground. "Get out of my face, Ryan. And get out of my house in 2 weeks." He leaned in even closer. "Your kid seems nice. Be a shame if he started picking up bad habits from his Uncle Ryan. Maybe I'll teach him how to smoke his first joint." That was it. I shoved him back so hard he stumbled into the wall. "Threaten my son again and I'll have you arrested so fast your head will spin. 2 weeks." I went back to my room and immediately called Jessica. "I need eviction papers for my sister and her boyfriend now." The next morning, I headed back to Austin, my blood still boiling from the encounter with that jerk Ryan. I tried to focus on work on Ethan on anything but the situation, but I knew it wasn't over. One day, I was in the middle of a team meeting at work when my phone started blowing up. Texts, calls, even emails from people I hadn't talked to in years. "Are you okay? Have you seen what Amber posted? Everyone's talking about it." I excused myself from the meeting and checked Facebook, and there it was. Amber had posted an old photo of me and Ethan along with this insane rant. "Meet my sister Megan, the heartless corporate sellout who's making our elderly parents homeless." She swooped in after 15 years of silence to steal their house and is threatening to kick them out unless they pay her back. All while she sits in her fancy house making six figures. Oh, and she's a terrible mother, too. Her poor son is being raised by nannies while she climbs the corporate ladder. Toxic family gold digger. The comments were a complete dumpster fire. People I went to high school with, distant relatives, even some of my parents' neighbors, all piling on about what a monster I was. Some of them were even tagging my workplace trying to get me fired. But what made my blood boil wasn't the lies about me. It was that she dragged Ethan into it, used his picture without permission, made him part of this garbage. Then my phone rang. It was Ethan's school. My heart dropped. "Miss Patterson, this is Mrs. Rodriguez from the front office. Ethan is quite upset. Apparently some of his classmates have been showing him some social media posts about your family." I felt sick. My hands were shaking as I told my boss I had a family emergency and raced to Ethan's school. When I got there, he was sitting in the counselor's office, his eyes red from crying. "Mom," he said in this small voice that broke my heart, "why is Aunt Amber saying those things about us online? My friend Jake showed me on his phone." I knelt down and hugged him tight. "Sometimes adults don't handle their problems very well, buddy. What Aunt Amber did was wrong. None of what she's saying is true. She said, 'You're a bad mom.'" He whispered against my shoulder. I pulled back to look him in the eyes. "Do you think I'm a bad mom?" He shook his head immediately. "You're the best mom. Then that's all that matters." I took Ethan home, called Jessica immediately, and told her what happened. "I want them out, all of them." "Now, whoa, slow down," she said. "What happened?" After I explained, she sighed. "I can draw up eviction papers for Amber and Ryan today, but your parents." "I'm not evicting my parents," I clarified. "Just the leeches living off them." That afternoon, Jessica drove down from Austin to meet me, and together we returned to the house. Ryan answered the door looking like he'd just woken up even though it was 2 in the afternoon. "What do you want now?" he sneered. Jessica stepped forward. "All business. Amber Patterson and Ryan Daniels. I'm serving you with eviction papers. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises, or we will proceed with formal eviction through the courts." Ryan laughed. "You can't be serious." Amber appeared behind him, arms crossed. "This is my parents' house. You can't kick me out?" "Actually, it's my house," I corrected her. "And yes, I can." I also handed her a cease and desist letter Jessica had drafted. "Take down that Facebook post and all other social media posts about me and my son immediately, or face legal action for defamation and unauthorized use of my child's image." Amber stepped toward me, her face twisted with anger. "You think you're so powerful. You and your little child are just leeches. A pathetic single mom dumped by her husband pretending to be strong, but still just a miserable failure." I saw red. Before I could think, I slapped her hard across the face. The sound echoed through the room. Amber's eyes went wide with shock, her hand going to her cheek. Ryan yelled and started forward, but Jessica stepped between us. "You can insult me all you want," I said, my voice deadly calm. "But if you ever mention my son again, I'll make sure you regret it for the rest of your miserable life." My mother was crying in the corner. My father just looked defeated. Ryan was glaring at me but staying back. "Sign the papers," Jessica said, pushing the documents forward. With no other choice, they signed. Ryan grabbed a duffel bag and stormed out. Amber spent an hour packing, then paused at the door. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are." I shrugged. "Try me." After they left, I sat down with my parents in the now quiet living room. My mother was still sniffling. "Why did you have to kick her out?" she asked. "She's your sister." "Biology doesn't make us family," I said flatly. "Her actions do, and she crossed a line when she dragged my son into this mess." My father sighed. "We just wanted to help her get back on her feet." "That's always been the problem," I replied. "You're always helping Amber, even when it hurts everyone else." I stayed long enough to make sure Ryan and Amber were really gone, then headed back to Austin. The drive home was a mix of emotions: anger at Amber, frustration with my parents' worry about Ethan, but also a strange sense of relief, like I'd finally stood up for myself after all these years. The next few months after kicking Amber and Ryan out were interesting to say the least. Amber made good on her threat to trash me online. She didn't just stop at Facebook. She went full nuclear: Instagram, Twitter, even freaking TikTok. She created this whole series called My Sister the Monster, where she'd tell these completely exaggerated or straight-up fake stories about me. According to Amber, I was a neglectful mother who pawned my kid off on nannies. A ruthless corporate climber who'd step on anyone to get ahead. The reason she and Ryan were homeless, they weren't. They moved in with his buddy, a manipulative witch who tricked my elderly parents out of their house. My parents are in their early 60s, hardly elderly. Some of my co-workers saw it. A few clients mentioned it awkwardly during calls. Ethan's teacher pulled me aside at pickup one day to ask if everything was okay at home. I even got called into my boss's office because someone had emailed the company about my elder abuse. Thank God my boss is cool. I explained the situation, showed her the legal documents, and she just rolled her eyes and said, "Family drama, huh? Been there." The worst part was dealing with Ethan's questions. Kids at school had seen some of the videos and were asking him about it. I tried to explain in a way a 10-year-old could understand. "Your aunt is very angry right now," I told him. "Sometimes when people are angry, they say things that aren't true." "But why is she so mad at you?" he asked, confused. "How do you explain decades of family dysfunction to a kid?" I just said, "Sometimes people think life should be fair, and when it isn't, they blame others instead of themselves." Surprisingly, that satisfied him. Kids are way more perceptive than we give them credit for. As for my parents, they were adjusting to the new normal. They were quiet, subdued around me. They didn't talk about Amber, just polite conversation and careful compliance with the terms of our agreement. I didn't leave them homeless or charge them rent, but they knew where the boundaries were now. Every month I'd bring Ethan to visit, not because I'd forgiven them, but because I wanted him to have grandparents even if they weren't great ones. The funny thing about social media drama is that it dies down pretty quick. People get bored and move on to the next outrage. By month 3, Amber's posts were getting fewer and fewer interactions. By month 6, she'd given up entirely. I found out through my mom, who quickly regretted bringing her up, that Amber and Ryan had broken up. Apparently, he cheated on her with some bartender. Karma's a jerk, I guess. Last I heard, Amber was working as a receptionist at a hair salon in Houston. A far cry from the famous artist my parents had sacrificed everything for. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a tiny bit of satisfaction about that. But here's where things get complicated. About 7 months after all this went down, my dad had another heart attack, a bad one. I got the call at 3 in the morning from my mom, hysterical, saying the ambulance had just taken him to the hospital. I drove to San Antonio in the middle of the night, leaving Ethan with my neighbor. When I got to the hospital, my mom was sitting alone in the waiting room, looking small and terrified. "Where's Amber?" I asked, sitting down beside her. "I called her," my mom said quietly. "She said she'd try to come tomorrow if she could get off work." Translation: her own father might be dying and she couldn't be bothered to show up immediately. Classic Amber. The doctors eventually came out and told us Dad had suffered a major heart attack but was stable. He'd need bypass surgery, though, and a long recovery period. I stayed with my mom until morning, then went to the house to shower and change. While I was there, I noticed something odd. There were bills piled up on the kitchen counter, many of them stamped past due or final notice. When I confronted my mom about it, she broke down crying. "We've been trying to make the payments to you, but with your father's medical bills from the first heart attack." She couldn't finish the sentence. I just stood there watching her cry. The performance was impressive, I'll give her that. But I wasn't falling for it this time. This was the same woman who stole my college fund without a second thought, who never once asked if I had enough to eat while I was working 3 jobs. "Funny how you only remember I exist when you need something," I said coldly. My mom looked up, tears still streaming down her face. "Megan, please, we're really struggling." "And where's Amber in all this?" I asked, flipping through the bills. "Why isn't she helping? She's the reason you're in this mess in the first place." "She's going through a hard time right now," my mom said weakly. Of course, Amber was always going through something, always the victim, always the priority. I spent the morning going through their finances, and it was worse than I thought. They were basically living on Social Security and a tiny pension. The medical bills from Dad's first heart attack had drained their savings. But then, I found something interesting buried in a stack of mail. A receipt for a $500 birthday gift they'd sent Amber just last month. They were skipping payments to me but still spoiling her. I slapped the receipt down in front of my mom. "You're struggling so much that you can send Amber $500 birthday gifts." My mom had the decency to look embarrassed. It was her 30th birthday. We wanted to do something special. "You know, when was the last time you remembered my birthday?" "Never. Not once in 15 years. "That's not fair, Megan. We sent you cards." I cut her off. "You never sent a thing. Not to me. Not to your grandson." I called the hospital to check on Dad, then grabbed my purse to leave. My mom followed me to the door. "Please, Megan." "What about the payments?" "We really can't afford them right now." I turned to face her. The deal stands. I'm not being tricked again. But your father, my father who sat silently while you stole my future. That father, my mom's face hardened slightly. We gave you life, Megan. We raised you. Don't you think you owe us something for that? And there it was. The manipulation, the guilt trip. Same old tactics. I don't owe you anything, I said firmly. You're not homeless. You have a roof over your heads because of me, but I'm not your ATM anymore. I did end up hiring a home health aide for my dad after his surgery. Not for them, but because it was the decent thing to do. I didn't take time off work, though. I'd wasted enough of my life on them. Amber showed up exactly once during Dad's recovery. Stayed for about 2 hours, took some selfies in the hospital to post online about being a devoted daughter, then left claiming she had work obligations. I managed to avoid her completely, which was definitely for the best. Was I too harsh on my family? Every time I started to feel a twinge of guilt, I'd remember my mom's face when she told me my college fund was gone. I'd remember all those nights I went hungry while Amber was at her fancy art school. All those Christmases I spent alone. All those years they never once asked about their grandson. I kept the payment plan in place. Business is business. They made their choices, and I made mine. So last week, something happened that turned everything upside down. I was in the middle of a big presentation at work when my assistant handed me a note. Emergency call from Ethan's school. I rushed over to find my kid sitting in the principal's office with a split lip and a black eye. The other kid looked worse. What happened? I asked. The principal explained that the other boy had been taunting Ethan about those videos Amber posted months ago saying, "I stole my parents' house and was a terrible mom." Ethan told him to shut up. And when the kid wouldn't stop, Ethan punched him. Both boys got suspended for 3 days. In the car, Ethan asked if he was in trouble. Fighting isn't the answer, I told him, but I understand why you were upset. That night, I finally Googled Amber. Turns out she'd rebranded herself as some kind of family trauma specialist online. She was using our story, a totally warped version, to sell life coaching sessions, even published an ebook called Toxic Sisters: Healing from Family Betrayal. She was literally making money off our family drama. The next day, my mom texted that Amber wanted to talk to me. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop. Not to reconcile, but to shut this crap down once and for all. She looked different. Messy bun, casual clothes, no designer stuff, but her eyes still had that calculating look. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she started, about how to monetize our family problems. I shot back, I said. She actually looked embarrassed. You saw that, huh? We argued for a bit, rehashing old wounds, then she dropped this bombshell. I'm broke, Megan. Completely broke. The coaching thing isn't working. Ryan maxed out my credit cards before he left. I don't know what to do. I laughed in her face. Welcome to real life, Amber. This is what it's like when nobody bails you out. This is what I went through at 19, except I didn't have designer clothes to sell or parents willing to mortgage their house for me. Please, she said, actual tears in her eyes. I need help. What do you want? I asked coldly. Money, a job. Can't you help me get something at your company? I'll start at the bottom. I couldn't believe it. After everything she'd done, she wanted me to help her. I'll take down all the videos, she added quickly. Delete the TikTok, pull the ebook, everything. I studied her face, looking for the manipulation. There was definitely some there, but also genuine desperation. Take everything down first, I said. Every post, every video, the ebook, everything. Then send me proof. After that, and only after that, we'll talk about job possibilities. But I need money now. Not my problem. I cut her off. You created this mess. You can live with the consequences for once. The next week, she actually did take down all her content about me and sent screenshots proving it. I was surprised she followed through. I know someone who runs a small marketing firm in Dallas, an entry-level position barely above minimum wage. I told him about Amber, the whole ugly truth, and he agreed to interview her. No promises. She texted me, "Thank you," but I didn't respond. This wasn't forgiveness. My thought is that it's better she has some income so she doesn't go crawling back to my parents for more money. As for my parents, Dad's out of the hospital, but the bills keep piling up. They've started dropping hints about modifying our agreement again. Not happening. I'm not their ATM. Mom texted me asking if Ethan could stay with them for a weekend. I shut that down immediately. They barely know him, and I don't trust them not to fill his head with their twisted version of our family history. The house is still in my name, and it's staying that way. I've made it clear they need to keep making payments or find somewhere else to live. Business is business. Will Amber keep her end of the bargain? Probably not. She's never faced real consequences before. Will my parents ever understand how badly they screwed me over? Doubtful. They're still the same selfish people, just older and more desperate. But I don't care anymore. I've wasted enough energy on them. My focus is Ethan and my career. The only things that have never let me down.